Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to SimSpeed TV from wherever you are watching in the world. It's the Ozicar Tin Top Enduro Cup today at Sandown International Motor Raceway, coming at you live on SimSpeed TV from YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Kick. I'm Dean Hunt, and alongside me in the comms box and producing today is super producer Jay Kennedy. And Jay, we're in for a big one today. Long enduro, hour and 45 minutes at the home of horsepower here in Victoria. Sandown International Raceway, it's only 25k southeast of the Melbourne CBD in a suburb called Springvale. Opened in 1962, it's built on the perimeter of a horse racing track, which is where the nickname Home of Horsepower comes from. Fantastic little circuit we've got here with 3.1 kilometres, 13 turns for this one, so perfectly suited for the GR86, which is the car that we're running today. And Jay, I think we're in for a big one with the weather forecast.
Yeah, firstly, hello everyone. It's great to be here, and these are always really cool races in the Tin Top Cup. This track, as you said, also very well suited to these cars. It should be a very fun combination. And as you said too, track just outside of Melbourne. It is August in Melbourne, which means the weather is likely to be changeable throughout the day. Currently it's beautiful and sunny, not too many clouds in the sky, if I could get my words out. But if you look in the distance at the track, there is a big band of wet weather on its way to hit this 3.1 kilometer circuit. And this track, as you said, opened in the 60s. Hasn't changed too much since it opened. It's been pretty much in its original form. It has had 2 layout changes, but for the most part, the circuit has remained very much the same throughout its entire lifetime. As you said as well, endurance race today. This is the format for today's racing. Drivers are currently in qualifying right at this present moment. And then we will get into a 105-minute race, which is 1 hour 45. To crown our Tin Top Cup champion for the second event of the year.
Yeah, fantastic. And as you say, track hasn't changed, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think this format's quite common with the single driver enduros. Somewhere between an hour and a half, 2 hours is a really good time frame to see what the guys can do. Bit of weather coming, so that'll make it a bit interesting, of course. But here we go, going through the starting grid here for the final round of the Tin Top Cup Enduro. We've got Tim Harris taking up pole position with his teammate Tony Baker for Pulse Tuning, Echuca Toyota for the front row lockout there.
Sorry, mate, I pressed the wrong button on you there.
No worries. P3, P4, Sam, I can't pronounce the surname, Katakouzanos. I'll have to get used to saying that if he's up the front. P3, Stephen O'Brien in P4. Dan Bartish in P5 and Nathan Verney for Locked On Racing in P6. Joseph Parkinson P7. Alongside him in P8 is Ronald Allen. John Snell for Norfolk Chance Racing in P9, and Jordan Darkin in Darkin Motorsport in P number 10. Peter Wilkinson for P11 Locked On Racing, and Leon Williams Black Sheep Racing to round out the top 12.
Here we go back to John Wade and Justin Cotter on the next row. Michael Latter and Bella Ainscough, the final couple of drivers that put in lap times. And the field rounded out by Ben Faulkner, Lewis Greathead, Jacob O'Reilly, Aaron Obersteller, all from Vermilion. Those four did not put in qualifying times alongside Douglas Gowans, Josh Horton, Sam Chapman, and Warren Henry. All of those drivers did not put in a qualifying time. There is one other driver as well, Dan Stevens. He did not put in a qualifying time. Ira Felberg is sitting in race control. Also has his wheel plugged in to drive the safety car if it is needed in this race as well.
Yeah, of course, and I reckon there's a good chance we do see the safety car come out, but of course the drivers do get one fast repair, so they'll be looking to use that if they do have to take the safety car. Not long now till the lights will be out and we can get racing. Revs rising. Here we go. Limiter bashing. Green flag's about to drop. It's a long hold here, and they're away. The green flag flies and they're off. They're all getting off to a pretty decent start. A little bit of confusion up in the back row there. One of the cars getting away a little bit slower, but so far so good. Clean down to turn number 1. Now we've got Tony Baker taking the lead off that P2 spot off Tim Harris. So he's got his race off to a perfect start in front of his teammate. Everyone seems to be starting on the dries by a couple of drivers. Joseph Parkinson and Sam Chapman starting on the wets, so that'll be interesting to see them develop as we come down through the S's. 2 abreast all the way through the mid-pack and towards the rear, but up out front it's all single file, Jay.
Yeah, relatively clean start. Surprising to see 2 drivers starting on the wets. They're waiting for that rain to come in and take effect on this racetrack, which won't be too far away, maybe 10 minutes into this race. So the amount of time that they lose on the wet weather tyre, will they be able to gain that back in the transition between wet and dry?
Yeah, we see Justin Cotter going a little bit wide through the S's there. It looks like he might be getting a slowdown penalty, I would say, but not an ideal start. But, there's plenty of long time to get back those positions and see what you can salvage there. But, yeah, starting on the wets, I'm not sure that's such a grand idea. You can really burn those tyres out before you even need them. So, look, the gamble's there to be taken, but see someone coming into the pits already. I think that's John Wade. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe
he's got a black flag from the race start, so maybe he jumped the start. Also seen John Snell also has a black flag.
Yeah, must be jump starts there, but Snell's not boxing yet. He's looking to get a move done here on, is it Lewis Greathead on the outside. Lewis holding his line on the outside and kicking it pinned, and now look out for Aaron Obstella behind. He might be looking to take that position in that number 7, and he does. So John Snell slowly moving back in the field. He probably should get in and serve that penalty before he loses a bit more time than he needs to in these battles. Meanwhile, Ben Faulkner coming up the back straight here. He's off to a pretty decent start so far, keeping his nose clean. Coming through to turn 8, which we've seen a lot of big smashes over the years. And there's Joseph Parkinson on those wets, so keep it on his pace. We're not sure. Yeah, not sure again what the right call is, but I feel like if you and maybe one other driver are only doing it, you might be making the wrong choice. You see Jordan Dakin dropping down the order.
He's just run wide at the exit of Dandenong Road. This cluster of cars here, there's 6-7 cars separated by nothing at this present stage. You've got Horton, Williams, Greathead, Oversteller, Jacob O'Reilly, Jordan Dakin as John Snell now does come in. So a big pack of cars here all fighting over the last spot in the top 10.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone wants to finish with a single digit next to their position number, of course. You're seeing a move being made there in the number 5 machine. That's Lewis Greathead getting past Peter Wilkinson, I think. He's got the overlap. He's got to come back through on the other side as well. Greathead's stuck behind Wilkinson now, so the switchback was on there. Of course, he's got a good run here coming out the back straight. It looks like he's going to get this move done. A bit of side draft, but of course, the nature of this track, there's a lot of counteracting corners, left, right. So you've got to really get your move done in the first corner if you've got the inside. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck on the outside for the following corner. And the tricky thing with these GR86s, they're very momentum-based cars. So you've got to really try and keep your momentum going to hold on to that spot, which is really tricky once you become offline. And we're seeing another move. Nose being poked in at Dandenong Road, but pulls out of it. Probably
Jacob O'Reilly. Yeah,
Jacob
Riley there
O'Reilly.
went for the move, but decided to go out, as you said. It was the right decision for sure, because he would have made contact. And this race, as opposed to normal Aussie car racing action, which is all post-race investigations and post-race penalties, we have live race control today, so watch out, and you want to feel Ira's wrath in this race, because he will get the switch out and give you a little flick over the wrist with it.
Yeah, and that's what we need to see when you're, especially for such a long race. There's no need for the over-aggressive moves. But there we go. We see some contact in the moment of action. We saw some contact there coming into turn 1. So the call's been made into race control. I'm sure we might be able to get a replay in a moment. And we're also seeing a car parked on the outside of Dan. Not sure who that is at the moment. That's John Snell, and he's not moving. Then he's just towed. So not sure what's happened there as well. 100% sure, but fair bit of action already.
Has he in the downshift potentially?
Could be.
Very strange.
Easily done at Dandenong Road. You're carrying a lot of speed and got to get that engine breaking down. As we've seen the incident at turn 1 here. Number 9 machine not really turning into the corner as early as the car on the outside might have liked, but he had a car on his inside, so he didn't have much choice, and radio call came in straight away. And here's John Snell. See if it's what you said, Joe. Coming down to Dandenong Road here. Big cut of the curb.
Wondering if he's just having some tech issues, because he's had that black flag already. Beach it on the curb? No, because he's backed it off into the grass and then into the dirt. He just stayed there. I'm a bit confused by that one.
Could be technical difficulties for him as well. Some
he has quit the session, so maybe he has had some tech dramas and decided, I better just head off. There's no point me being here if I'm going to have dramas.
Yep, and that's the thing as well. You don't want to ruin anyone else's race if you're having issues. So probably the sporting and right thing to do there. And it's no fun even if you're not going to ruin anyone's race. If you're battling tech issues for another hour and 38 minutes, that's no fun. But meanwhile, highlighted on the totem pole is the battle for first. So we've got Tony Baker currently leading. He was starting on P2. Got the jump from his teammate Tim Harris, who looked like at the moment they're holding position. I don't remember the difference in pace on qualifying, but it wasn't tiny, but it wasn't massive either. So here comes Tim Harris around the outside of Tony Baker and taking that position back. So they've exchanged again, but Sam Katakanuzis and Dan Bardash, Ben Faulkner all following closely behind. So a big draft on this track as well. Lots of the straights are quite long, and on these GR86s they're quite they're not so aerodynamic, but they do create a lot of drag because they're shaped like a brick almost. So definitely good to be in the tow there. As Faulkner's getting down the inside of Dan Bartish through Dandenong Road, and here he comes onto the got the move done quite easily there. But
good move.
Look at that radar. Good move done. Have a look at that radar. Rain's coming, Joe.
Yeah, it's not far away. In about the next 5 or 6 minutes. So Joseph Parkinson, as we said, he started on the wets. He hasn't dropped too far back. So maybe the pace difference between the wet and dry tyre isn't as huge as we may have expected. He's dropped 10 seconds off the pace, but even then, that's not a huge amount. He's going to gain that back pretty quickly in the first couple of laps of it being wet. And the other guys are going to have to come in and make a pit stop as well for wet tyres potentially. So who knows what could happen. The great thing about the changeable weather, you can also see that the track has got a lot darker in the last 2 or 3 minutes as well. Clouds are definitely starting to come in. Yeah,
definitely. But the temperature of the track at the moment is still 47 degrees Celsius, so it's pretty warm. We're seeing a car off here. That's the 77 of Jordan Tarkin on the exit of, I believe that's turn 1, which is not where you want to be. I've heard some radio chatter, so call's probably gone into race control. Iris might have to get that switch out again, as she said. But back to what we were saying, 47 degree track temp. Pretty easy to burn those wets up, so risk reward here as we come to the replay. We'll see what happened.
On that himself, and then Stevens has come in. I don't even know if he made contact there, did Dan Stevens, when Dakin went around. So
Unless there's maybe some netcode or something.
potentially.
I couldn't hear what was being said on the radio, but immediately after that happened, there was some radio chatter, so I could only assume that it was regarding that incident, but not sure. It looked like to me he did it by himself, but get a load of this right under the bumper. As we're going into turn 1 here, this is for P2. This is Ben Faulkner on Tony Baker. Gets it done on the braking. I think Tony smartly probably didn't fight that one too hard. It's a long race, still an hour and 34 to go, so Ben Faulkner now in the middle of an Echuca Toyota Pulse tuning sandwich. But he's probably looking to try and get that black and green 86 for the Vermilion Motorsport up in front.
Seen Aaron Obersteller get past Joseph Parkinson as well, so he's just in conservation mode. Conserve the tyres now. And, hopefully when the rain comes, you take a big advantage with them. Don't lose too much ground to Ben Faulkner, who's now taking the lead. Remember, didn't do a qualifying time, so started in 17th. Now up into P1. Great drive from him through the field. Josh Horton also now up 14 positions. He started in 21st and now up into position 7.
Wow, some moves being made early on. We've only been racing for 11 or 12 minutes, and it's pretty bloody impressive, if I say so quietly. But all the way from essentially what may as well have been last to first is a bloody good drive. So currently Ainscough getting around the outside here through the S's and cuts the chicane, so that's probably going to be a slowdown. Massive cut there and gives the position back. So and now we'll have to serve that slowdown, which of course will lose you a lot more time than what you actually gained, and quite easy to do over the hill there through those S's. It's a tricky one because you've got to get the cars straightened up to brake, of course, but you've still got to get through the corners. So trying to straight line that sort of chicane, yes, at the right trajectory to be able to pull the car up.
This is on board with Josh Horton, who's just taken 6th position away from Stephen O'Brien. See, just a beautiful little move. Use all of the track. Make a little bit of contact, door-to-door contact coming into turn 1, but it's the move done before they get the braking zone in the end. And you see in the background there too, Nathan Verney decided to use all of the track plus some more.
Well, we paid his $14.99 USD for the track, so he's going to use it all.
Use it all, yeah.
But I don't think you get a slowdown out there. You do get the off track. I'm not sure what the incident limit is for this event.
There's no limit, so they can use them all.
Well, they can use them all, so you may as well. If you're going to go wide, there's no point trying to save it and potentially cause yourself a spin or something and to save the incident point. But here we go, move down into the turn 6 through the chicanes here. Getting it done on the braking. That's the number 8 of Warren Henry getting past Sam Chapman. So fantastic move from him. Really well done. That's really tricky to go too wide through that section of the track. As we're seeing more moves being made down the main straight here. A little 3-car gaggle of 86s. And look at that. That's water in front of the camera. So the rain's here.
Yep, the rain is definitely now starting to fall. So this is when we'll see the likes of Joseph Parkinson start to make a little bit of inroads and have a look. There you go. The rain is definitely here. And being Melbourne, it's going to be bizarre rain as well. It's going to fall all sorts of weird directions. The track will cool in weird ways. Look at that already. The track's dropped to 37 degrees with a little sprinkle of water on it.
I bet in the sim it would smell really nice. You know, that hot tarmac with the rain coming in. But you know, they say about Melbourne, Victoria, 4 seasons in a day. You get really sunny, beautiful day, and then it just starts raining and getting windy, and then it'll probably be back to sunny again. So we're seeing that in the sim. So here's Joseph Parkinson, who was game enough to start on the wet. So we'll see how that fares for him. He had about 13 minutes or so on a dry track with wet tyres. Don't think it's quite wet enough yet. It's only just started raining, so seeing a couple of guys pitting already, maybe trying to get ahead of the curve, but we've sort of got to allow a few laps before the wet tyres will probably start being the pace difference. But that just depends on how much they were worn being on the dry track, the way the grooves work against the slicks. You need the grooves to be the grip. That's what the point of the wet tyre is, and if you're using a wet tyre on a dry track, those grooves become a little bit more flat, so we'll see what happens there.
Gordon Dakin just came into the pits earlier after his spin and went onto the wet straight away, so he was back out. You also can see Warren Henry, as we saw, is in the pits right now, but has not left the pit lane. And I'll tell you what, just behind there, that is the car of Nathan Verney, is it? Yep. A huge slide coming through the into the S's there at Dandenong Road. So did a good job to hold on to that, because it is getting a little bit slippery now. You can see the wording from the in-sim chat still says the track is dry. A few drivers are now starting to come in and get that pit stop done to the wet tyres. I think a couple of drivers are going to risk it and stay out there on dries the whole way through this rain band.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on how much time you're going to lose on the pit stop. I think it's a pretty decently long pit road here at Sandown, and obviously being on the main straight, the equal fastest part of the track. You see Verney getting past Darkin there. Looked like it was pretty easily done. He might have a slowdown or something to serve. Yeah, he's getting out
he's
the
a
way.
lap down, so he's just getting out of the way.
Oh, well, there you go. Silly me. He's a lap down, so just getting out of the way. But as I was saying, the pit road here is quite long, so you're going to lose a lot of time by stopping, and it's just a matter of weighing it up. 37.5 seconds in the pit lane for someone there, and Dan Stevens, it was Dan Bartosh for that time, and Dan Stevens still in the lane, so look at that timer creeping up. Can you save 35 seconds by staying out on the slicks? That's what the guys at the front are probably weighing up. Your Ben Faulkner, Tim Harris, Tony Baker, those sorts of guys at the front are under the most pressure to make that decision. So I feel like you've got a bit more leeway when you're in the mid-pack, because you don't have as much to lose, so you can just try and gamble a little bit more and maybe stay out, or maybe take the dries a bit, the wets a bit earlier. So it's all just one of those things. Big gamble. Big part of racing is luck as well.
Yep.
It depends. You might have someone trying to enter the pits before you on slicks and lose it, because we know that the pit lane can get very slippery because no one's driving on it as much as the main surface. So there's so many factors that go into it, and you look at the totem pole at the moment, it's all jumping around and positions being changed from people pitting, so it sort of seems that the field's a bit split in two at the moment, what they want to do.
Just looking at pace as well, so Ben Faulkner's pace has dropped around about 3.5 seconds from his fastest lap, that previous lap. Some drivers have dropped about 2.5, but Joseph Parkinson, who is on the wets, he actually has dropped about 3 seconds from his fastest pace with this wet weather, so he is dropped off as well. We'll see what some of the other wet tyre runners now do, but about half the field on wets, half the field on dries. Now Sam Katakouzanos is around at Dandenong Road, turn 8. It's one of the first big spins we've seen since the wet weather has started to come down with dry tyres.
Yeah, and Nathan Verney's almost just gone around as well on the dries at the same spot coming into Dandenong Road through the S's. So sorry to cut you off there. I thought he was going to go around, but he saved it.
This is the wet weather. The wet weather affecting dry tyres, slick tyres. And you can see that they've no control at the front there at all. So keeping heat in the tyres is going to be important as well.
Yeah, 100%. That was a big slide and a real passenger moment there. So I'm imagining that guys are seeing this happening in front of them and around them, and maybe taking that into account. But a few guys still haven't pitted yet, so we'll see what happens there. Some guys still on the dries, so see how long you can stay out and if it's worth it. But if you end up in the fence, it becomes really not worth it, doesn't it?
Correct. Actually just saw too, after Katakouzanos had that spin at turn 8, also had another spin at the final corners. Ben Faulkner, now you can see that the guy that's the fastest on track is having real trouble keeping the car under control now. So I think we're past that crossover point where slicks and wets interlock, and it's definitely a wet track now.
Well, There he goes, proving your point off the circuit, cutting across. And is he going to get an issue there with the cutting of the circuit and going straight into the pit box? Yeah, he's going to have to come to a complete stop almost. Lucky no one's behind him, but as we know in iRacing, if you have a slowdown penalty and come into the pit lane, you're just going to get a stop and go black flag. So could have been really bad for Ben Faulkner there, but I think
a
he
few
might have
mechanical
avoided that
black
one.
flags right now too. I'm trying to find out exactly what's happened. There's been a big crash somewhere for a few drivers. Whether they're all independent or not, I'm not 100% sure, but John Wade, Bella Ainscough, and Ronald Allen have all got mechanical black flags. This is how John Wade got his, and he won't be the last driver we see do this throughout the day.
Oof. That is that's a big one.
Yep.
I don't think he's getting to the pits by himself, so he probably would have had to tow there. I do believe they don't have to request a tow in this league. I did hear that on the race briefing. They don't need to request a tow, so that'll make race control's life a bit easier in a situation like this, not having to approve tows. But have a look at that. Everyone's on the wets now except Sam Katakouzinos, and he's coming in at the moment, and Peter Wilkinson.
This is one of our other mechanical black flags for Bella Ainscough. And she just had a tech issue just before that happened. So I'm wondering if she's had a wheel failure and then sort of spat her into the fence. So hopefully that's not the case and she's okay tech-wise. But we'll find out soon enough. And as you said, Peter Wilkinson now and Sam Katakouzinos, who is in the pits, still yet to go to the wets. But Wilco, right on cue, facing the wrong direction on those dry tyres in wet conditions.
Yep. And it's just one of those things. There's that changeover point you mentioned, Joe, that there's a certain point where it either becomes too dangerous to stay out on the dries or too slow, or a mixture of both.
Yeah, or both.
And we've definitely seen that already. So look at the order's been shifted up quite a bit. Joseph Parkinson now currently leading to Sam Chapman, but Chapman 10 seconds behind him, and then Ben Faulkner, who is our previous race leader, 26 seconds off the lead. So those couple of offs really cost him, and it looks like Joseph Parkinson has absolutely timed that to perfection because
starting on wets is paying off now, isn't it?
He's just started on the wets, yeah. So we'll see if that still carries on towards the end of the stint, but you know that could have been 200 IQ. You're seeing the number 10 Vermilion Motorsport entry getting into the sand trap and getting out of it. Might have to engage the imaginary four-wheel drive to get out of the mud there, but yeah, well saved there.
Nathan Verdi just had it all locked up coming into the final corner there, and Wilco's still out on his dry tyres. I thought he was about to risk it and try and go till we start to see the track drying off, but I think he's decided no, it's just way too wet now. So looking at the forecast, this rain probably isn't going to be around for too much longer. It's not an overly wet looking sky from here on out, so we'll see how much the weather affects this race over the next little bit, but I think it'll be dry maybe in 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, I think the precipitation will stop in about 5-10 minutes, but the next question is how long does the track remain wet and what sort of lines does that create for the drivers?
How long do you wait to go to the dries?
Exactly, it's the opposite problem of what we just had. Where's the standing water at? Where's the really wet parts of the track? You know, risk versus reward. You know, if it's a bit wet through the S's, but it's a lot drier up at Dandenong Road, yeah, definitely take the slicks, I reckon. But if you need the wets at Dandenong Road and coming down that hill, I think you're definitely going to need to keep them on, because we've seen so many drivers become passengers at that point without enough grip. So even with the wet tyres on, you're seeing them sliding around coming into there, because it's just such a tricky part of the track. You've got painted white lines, you've got curbs, and you've got a downhill braking zone where you're turning. Very easy to get that one wrong.
See here, Dan Stevens has Aaron Oversteller up right in behind him there, trying to apply a little bit of pressure. So Littlefinger Racing and Vermilion Motorsport battling here for position number 11. Apologies for the on-screen graphics just decided to crash on us too.
A few gremlins about today.
Oh, we're having one of those days. We've had some strange things happen in the broadcast booth the last couple of weeks with gremlins and all sorts of weirdness happen, but hey, we're getting there. We'll have a whole new equipment coming in the next few days. We'll have a whole new stream set up. I'm working on a whole heap of new stuff in the background, so exciting things coming.
Very exciting.
Fortunately, couldn't quite get things ready for today, but had a few really good things in the works. Excited to show everyone the new toys in the background in the next few weeks.
And as you should be. Top broadcasting team here we got, and you know, excluding myself obviously, but and you need the equipment to back that up and the production behind it. So big hats off to yourself, Jay. As we're seeing a locked on car of Nathan Verney in the wall. He's binned it. Has he made contact with the wall? Not sure, but he looked very stationary for a moment there. So I can't really see any damage on the car at the moment. He's side by side with Dan Stevens at the moment. He can hold on to that position. Doesn't look like he's got any damage. So
he might have kept it out of the wall.
Yeah, kept it out of the wall. I think the new, well, I say new, but relatively new grass and sand in iRacing has helped him out there and slowed him down a bit more than you might have seen a year or so ago. But they're still side by side coming down the main straight into turn one. Verney's got the inside. No more overlap there from Dan Stevens, but look behind, we've got Obersteller as well. He might be able to sneak in a little bit on Dan Stevens, which he gets the overlap, pushes Dan out onto that curb on the outside. It's a little bit slippery there. Dan will have the inside for turn two, and he holds onto that position. So it's very tricky making moves in the wet because seemingly there's not as many choices of line as you might like.
Here we look at Nathan Verney, just too hot into the S's. Aquaplanes over the water, and he was a long way away from the wall. Very well.
Yeah, but he was coming in hot. I'm surprised he managed to stop. They're lucky that the pavement was there in between, give him a little bit of grip on the tyres, but he's managed to keep that out of the wall, which is very well done to him. But that's what we're talking about, coming down into Dandenong Road. Those lines on the track and the curbs can really upset the car, let alone in the dry the curbs can, but when it's wet the lines come into it as well, and you're losing traction under brakes, and it's a really tricky one, especially in these GR86s. They're not very, they're race cars, but they're really production cars with a race car sort of set up on them, but makes it a little bit trickier.
It's very much a production style car. As you said, normally with some slick tyres and a roll cage. Basically, you see lots of drivers off at turn one. At Dandenong Road, including our race leader, who is now dropping back to second. The two drivers that started on wet tyres, Sam Chapman and Joseph Parkinson, they've swapped position. But interestingly, they still have a 12-second margin back to the next car.
Wow, and Verney's off again. In the same spot, I think, as well, meanwhile. But Chapman and Parkinson, I had my doubts early on, and I'll happily say that I'll eat my hat because they've actually blitzed the field with that strategy. So see if it pays off for them moving forward. But very similar mistake there from Verney as last time. A little bit closer to the wall this time, but photographer there getting a good shot of it. Sorry, that's not even Dandenong Road. That was
that was turn 4. And turn 4.
So similar mistake, different part of the track.
Yeah. And you notice one other thing as well right now. No more rain falling. The sun's already started to come back out. So we see the track dry. How quick will we see it dry? And how quickly will we see someone go to a dry tyre? I think someone will try it relatively quickly, but decision to decide when you want to go to that dry tyre. Also can see that Jacob O'Reilly is now on the back of this group as well. He was ahead of these guys, was he not?
I think so, yeah. Might have had a little bit of strife earlier on. He was ahead, yeah, but here he comes trying to make that spot back. And he's just disappeared. A little bit of connectivity issues, but
Speaking of changing positions, Parkinson's back in the lead.
oh, well, that didn't take very long.
No. Yeah, let's go around the track a little bit quicker on this lap. You can see just ahead as well, Nathan Verney's not too far up the road. That's Wilco, Peter Wilkinson, who's put it in the fence, unfortunately. You want to shout out to Wilco. Wilco today is doing a live stream for charity for Beyond Blue. We have put the link to the charity donations in the YouTube chat. So if you want to donate, help out Beyond Blue, help out Wilco's stream, please do. It's a great cause, and one of the great people in the community is Wilco.
Yeah, it's a fantastic job from Wilco. Beyond Blue, excellent charity, do a lot of great work around the mental health space, and we find that a lot of the sim racing community is very helpful with that sort of thing. You know, you've always got someone to talk to if there's any issues, and it's a really nice community. But here we go, here's the lead change again. Sam Chapman coming past Joseph Parkinson. Parkinson's letting it go, does not want to go too wide through the S's. Oh, a little squirrely there from Chapman, but he saved it. And spinning out in front of him is one of the Vanillion entries. I wonder if that's going to cause any issues for them. No, never mind. Here he's off the circuit, so the locked on entry of Nathan Verney, but nearly getting run into the back of by Ben Faulkner there from P3. But that move from Chapman was good, but Parkinson pulled out of that, I think, just at the right time. Going too wide down the hill into Dandenong there in these conditions is scary. I don't blame him for that one.
100% scary. I'd say Faulkner is using the curbs aggressively. I don't know if you've noticed that. He's really bouncing it over the curbs and using the curbs to pull the car through the corner. The only one I've seen use the curbs as aggressively. He's also already starting to search for water to keep the tyres cool. So he's worried about a dry line already starting to form here in the track. And have a look how sideways he is there.
I wonder if he's got a round rim and he's got a bit of opposite lock going on instead of the GT style. But it looks like he's not quite in control of the car, but I reckon behind the wheel he really is. He knows exactly where to put that thing. He's just driving right on the limit. Jacob O'Reilly and is that Dan Stevens having a fight over P10 at the moment with Aaron still behind those two. Little battle going on for the final spot in the top 10. These cars have been inseparable for the last few laps, and I wonder when we're going to see another move here from Dan Stevens, getting his nose up on the inside. He's finding the dry part of the track on the inside, but can't quite get it done. So not as strong on the brakes as the car in front, Jacob O'Reilly, but little fight over that last top-10 spot. There we go, he's off Dandenong Road.
Leave again.
Didn't lose a whole heap of time. Another car going off behind as well. I think there was another MFR entry behind as well. But these guys swapping their lead over fairly regularly now. Trying to get some more broadcast time. Maybe trying to get the sponsors a bit more limelight and keeping themselves in the loop. But here you go, Aaron Obastella getting the move done on Dan Stevens. Again, we're seeing Dan Stevens a similar position, pulling out before the S's at Dandenong Road, and the car in front, Jacob O'Reilly's. Oh, Dan Stevens! Oh. Jacob O'Reilly went off too. He had a huge cut of the chicane on the way into Dandenong Road, but I wonder if he's got to slow down and Aaron's going to just take that position too. But Dan Stevens he became a passenger and almost got into the back of O'Reilly as well. So
Sam Chapman's lost second position at the same time as well while that was happening. I was almost about to flick over, and I'm so glad I didn't, because that was a good save by Stephen. But look at the difference between those two cars. The aggressive nature of Faulkner is bouncing over the curbs, and Sam Chapman, those guys were running the same setup, running from the same two stages, but they're just managing that car completely differently.
yeah, different driving styles. I think when you see the conditions change like this, you do see a little bit more variety in how people want to do things. It's it's, you know, we obviously see a lot of risk reward sort of driving in the dry, but I think it becomes more apparent in the wet because the risk is higher, but the reward is even greater. Ben Faulkner getting past some lap traffic there, almost getting into the back of the 52 in front there, but the 32, mind you. But look at the way he's just bouncing it across those curbs. I think that's pretty standard in the dry, especially you watch the V8 supercars at this circuit. They're smashing them over the curbs, but in the wet, it's a really easy way to unstabilize the car. But you know, if you can keep it under control, and he's got the fastest lap still, of course, that was done in the dry, but you know, I'd probably say he's the fastest car on track in the wet too. So doing a fantastic job as Ben Faulkner at the moment.
He's just controlling the slides and then getting the car up on two wheels to bounce it over the curbs. And then the other part of that, while he's bouncing it over the curbs, he's using the inside of the curb. He's interlocking the wheel on the inside of the curb and using the inside part of the curb to drag the car around the corner. So, yes, curbs can hinder your racing in wet weather conditions, but if you use them right, they can help you because, as you can see from Faulkner, he's using the inside of the curb to literally drag him around the corner. You can see it right there. He used the inside of the curb, it ripped the car through the corner. It did force him a little bit wide, but it helped him through the first part of that corner very, very well.
Yep. And thanks to that, he's put 2 seconds on Joseph Parkinson when they were only just fighting over that position not too long ago. I'm having a look now. The track is starting to dry up. iRacing saying only lightly wet. If you have a look at some of the sections of the circuit, we got a car in the fence there, but not sure who that was. Sort of making his way back out now in the background there, but car in the fence, not good. But yeah, as I was saying, look at the middle of the track there. It's starting to dry up under that Penrite bridge there, but wonder how long it's going to be until we start seeing some risky manoeuvres. Surely it's still at least 3 or 4 laps away, but there's a certain point where the wet tyres just drop off and you won't be able to be on pace with it.
I've seen Nathan Verney's picked up a mechanical black flag for some reason. I'm trying to work out where that's happened. But yeah, the track is definitely starting to get a dry line, but it's not a dry track. I've just found where he's done that, and it's at his favourite corner, the S's. He's hit the wall. Nathan's a big moment in the Dandenong Road at the end.
Easily done. Second hand looking 86 there. We've seen, I don't know how many times we're going to see that today, but I feel like at least a couple more. But it's a really tricky spot of the track, even under the dry conditions. I think to get the braking right through those corners across those curbs is a really tricky one. But meanwhile, Ben Faulkner, a little bit of opposite lock through turn 1. He's put 4 seconds now on Joseph Parkinson, so he's showing that he is the wet weather master at the moment, up 16 positions from where he started. Sam Chapman right on the back end of Joseph Parkinson as well, so I wonder if we're seeing a little drop off in the pace of Parkinson, or if the boys around him are just going a little bit faster. Bella Ainscough potentially got some damage, or...
Yeah, she's hit the wall again. Race done now because that's his second damaged car. So everyone gets one pass repair. Been way too hot. No grip. Less grip now on the. Oh yeah, that front tyre's fairly heavily damaged. So fingers crossed she can get back out on track. But yeah, that car doesn't look too good right now.
No, it'd take a monumental effort from the virtual pit crew to get that one going again and not lose too many laps. But obviously safety cars may play a part later on. We haven't seen one called yet. I'm not sure what the procedure is in this particular event, but no one has to request a tow, so generally we see it from requested tows. We probably would have had about 7 or 8 safety cars now if that were the case, but nevertheless. And here we go, we got the 132 machine, a massive hit. Almost ended up in the horse track and it's just towed immediately. Ronald Allen. I reckon is he back out there again?
He's already used one of his fast repairs, so I don't know if we'll see him back out on track or not. Could use his Bella Ainscough coming back out, but that car does not look healthy. I've just seen too that there's been another mechanical black flag come through for Nathan Verney. Or is that still the same one, potentially?
Alright. Not sure. I think it might be the same one. I thought he would have used
maybe.
his fast repair already. I'm not...
No, he hasn't used his fast repair, so
Yes,
yeah, you're right. So, yeah, so it's still that same one.
Yeah.
This is Tim Harris and Josh Horton battling for position. They've got a lap down car just in front of him as well, as Horton goes through into 4th position over Harris.
It's all changing up the front end. Horton maybe looking at chasing down Parkinson and Chapman as well, but it's quite the gap at the moment, about 30 seconds behind Parkinson at the moment. So there's a huge gap between the top 3, well, actually the top 1, and then the 2nd and 3rd in a little pack, and then 4th and 5th. There's a huge gap between 3rd and 4th at the moment, so big difference in strategies, of course. We saw Parkinson starting on the wets, as well as was Faulkner, wasn't it, as well on the wets at the start?
Faulkner started on dries, it drove away, and then was one of the later ones to hit.
That's right.
Well, but yeah, it was just Chapman and Parkinson that started on the wets. Those two have taken a huge advantage from that call to take the wets at the start. You can see the track is really drying off. There's still a lot of spray, but the track is now only 6-7 seconds a lap slower than when we saw them out there on the dry tyres right at the start, as Obersteller now goes off at Dandenong Road. We've seen so many cars off at this part of the track. Hey, can you believe we're already 40 minutes into this race? Yeah,
I cannot.
That is crazy. It feels like we're only 15 odd minutes in. It's gone so quick.
Yeah, but we've had enough action to last us for
100%.
definitely the hour 45 already, but we'll see what else is in store. But yeah, yeah, we're seeing sideways there, Sam Chapman, and behind as well, Joseph Parkinson.
Good save.
Getting it pulled up. Good save from both drivers there. But they're really on the limit of the grip on that section of the track. Every single driver. Nathan Verney's got his fast repair done. Is he coming out on the dries? He is.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. I mean, I don't think it might be a little bit too early, seeing as what's happening with everyone else on the wets. But when you're down
he had
that
nothing
far,
to lose. He sort of had to risk it, considering he had to come into the pits at that point. He might as well risk it. He's going to lose a bit of time for now, but he will get that back if he can maintain the car. You can really start to see a dry line forming there. You can visually see a proper dry line, but that confirms it's still too wet.
It's not very dry on the grass either, no. So yeah, it's very wet out there. He's going to have to really tippy-toe around. You know, we'll know for sure in the next few laps' time, or maybe even longer, if that's going to pay off. But we do see it in real life and in the sim, is the risks sometimes do pay off. You're really far back in the pack. You've had a stinker of a race so far. You need to try and change something to do something about it. If you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's the definition of insanity, apparently, so I've been told. But you've got to really just try and shake it up a bit. And sometimes you've just got to try it. And I think I'm a big advocate for that. I love to see it. A little bit of risk. And there we go. Another car's going around, probably on the wets as well. So Lewis Greathead getting into the back of Dan Bartosh here. Is that Tim Harris in front of them as well? I think that was a lap car in front. But yeah, Lewis Greathead getting ahead at the moment. Getting on the back of, Dan Bartosh. And looking to maybe set up a move here, coming up to the S's at Dandenong Road. He's got some overlap on that rear quarter panel. It's a little bit scary coming over the crest here. They've got a little bit of time to think about it in the 86s, but he lets him sort of have it there. But it's not over yet. They're right nose to tail at the moment, coming down into Dandenong Road. Good fight for position. Coming down into no one's in the sand trap, so that's good. But well done from both drivers there, keeping it under control and getting the move done.
And see, there's still a fair bit of spray coming up off the track, so the track is still definitely very, very wet. And Nathan Verney straight away has come back into the pits. The reason being he's picked up another mechanical black flag.
Oh no. That's just gone from bad to worse for him. Yeah, sometimes you got to shake it up, like I said, but yeah, it definitely doesn't always work.
He had to try and risk something because he wasn't going to be able to get himself into a decent position otherwise. But yeah,
Exactly.
trying to work out exactly how that's happened.
I would.
Okay, I found it. So it was in his recovery after his spin leaving the pits. Now watch this here.
There's a big hole there somewhere.
Sam Parkinson, Sam Chapman just went through, and then this is Joseph Parkinson. When we started on the wets, he just made a little bit of contact, bang into the wall.
Oh no, that could have been really bad for Parkinson. Not how you want. You definitely don't want to see that when you're up fighting for the lead. I mean, he's 20 seconds off the lead at the moment, but he's currently on the podium. He would have lost maybe 5 or 6 seconds of time there, but that's a very scary moment when you see a car rejoining in front of you, especially in the wet, because like I said before, there's not as many choices of line, and you can't move the car as freely as you'd like to without losing the rears. So did pretty well to drop the anchors, get on the brakes, did Joseph Parkinson. But yeah, obviously that time loss is annoying, and obviously for the car in front getting that another mechanical black flag, and that's probably race done for him.
Yeah, unfortunate for Nathan Verney. He's one of the regulars that we have here on our SimSpeed broadcast. Is Michael Ladder, 16th position. That'll drop back to 17th position with Wilco going through. Ladder will have to get that time back. Not going to be easy for him to get the time back because Wilco's checked out, and we've just seen Aaron Obersteller just ahead. He's just looped it. So I think a few drivers are now trying to push the limits a little bit more, and struggling a bit with that.
Yeah, definitely. Just the limit is not quite as clearly defined when the track is changing like this. I think the evolution, what might have been your breaking point 5 or 6 laps ago is going to be different to what it is now, and your turning points and your lines. So here we go. We got Sam Chapman coming into the lane.
This will be fuel as well, by the way. Sorry to cut you off. This will be the fact, not that he needs new tyres, but that he's pretty much run the tank dry.
Yeah, I wonder, because so Parkinson started on the wet, so he'll have
It'll be the same situation. So if he comes in the next lap or two, that'll confirm that.
Yeah.
What does Chapman do for tyres, though?
Well, that's the tricky part, I think. If I'm him, I'm staying on the wets. You can't risk it from that position. And he's shown us that driving the wets on dry track isn't too bad at the start. So I'd probably be going onto the wets if I were him, and sort of just hoping that you're not going to lose too much time. So that's obviously where the difference comes. So Parkinson, Chapman dries.
I was thinking the same as you, that the track is okay to drive with the wet tyres on the dry, but the dry tyres on the wet track is not as easy. But Chapman's going to risk it, and I'm wondering if already he's realising that might not have been the right call.
Yeah, he's testing the grip on the straightaway there, just a little bit of a weave, but having a look at, you can see there's puddles still all over the circuit, and it is still fairly wet where you're actually needing to drive, and look at him sliding around there. So it's just, can he survive for the next few laps and keep the car out of the fence and retain that sort of... He did have quite the gap to fourth behind him, so Parkinson's coming into the lane now as well, but he's trying to get some heat into those tyres. I wonder if the car behind him is not really enjoying that, the wash of the aero and that coming off the car in front and weaving, but yeah, that's a really risky manoeuvre. We'll see if it's the right move right about now as he's coming down into Dandenong Road. Slidey on the entry, the back end's kicking out, but he's holding onto it, sliding on the exit as well. He's done pretty well to hang onto it there and not lose much time, but it's Dan Bartosh, I think. It's Jacob O'Reilly getting past him, teammates here. So get out of the way, let me keep going on my wets, and you can try and stay alive on those drives. Might be the conversation on Discord at the moment.
Parkinson's going to come out right behind, so he has also gone to the dry tyres. Interesting, remember we were talking about at the start of the race how hot the track was. Let me change that to that. No, it's not going to work because overlays crashed on me. We said what it was about 45, 46 degrees Celsius.
Yes.
The track is now cooler than the air temperature. When we started, it was almost double the air temperature. So even the dry tyres now are going to be much more difficult to get heat into than the start of the race too. So I think that plays into that wet idea a bit more too.
Yeah, definitely. These cars don't have a lot of grip as it is, not a lot of aerodynamics, and not a lot of speed to go along with it. So it doesn't have a lot of grip in the dry as it is. So tyre temperature is obviously going to be super important. But yeah, like you say, squirrely into Dandenong Road there. So we see Michael Ladder facing the wrong way. Oh, and he's just driven into the fence. I think he was preoccupied with the cars coming, and I think he's just towed. Yeah, he's just towed as well. So that was a bit of a sticky situation. I think he was worried about the oncoming traffic and trying to get out of the way, and didn't know the fence was that close maybe, and just went straight into it. So we cut the replay.
He's just gone a little bit too far on the inside of the corner and hit a puddle, I reckon.
Yep.
He hasn't gone the normal line. You can see how dry the track is getting though, can't you? It's really dry. And I think he was thinking he was avoiding that wall there and using that little angle bit and getting on the grass and just clipped it.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's yeah, getting on that puddle as well. Like, that's the other thing. You've still got standing water on the circuit, so some points are drier than others, and then there's some puddles where you're just going to aquaplane through, whether you're on wets or dries. So that's a tricky one to manage. Meanwhile, Ben Faulkner now with 44 seconds in front of Joshua Houghton, sorry. Justin Cotter coming into the lane to get a new set of boots on, I would say. Maybe is he going to go to the dries? We'll find out in a moment, but probably a scheduled stop for fuel as well. Meanwhile, Sam Chapman here, P8, still trying to nurse those dry tyres in. Joseph he's getting squirrely, but Joseph Parkinson behind him as well in the same situation. They pitted a lap after each other, and Chapman there, he was showing some pretty good car control in the wet, where he's driving right on the limit, bouncing across the curbs, getting a bit of opposite lock. So he's just showing that he's got those skills on the dry tyres as well. So he's doing a pretty good job keeping that car on track, keeping his pace up. And I think that this starting on the wet tyres business may have been a 200 IQ play, because it's really starting to pay off for them now, as we can see that they haven't really had any issues yet on the dries compared to everyone else being still in the wets.
Saying that their pace is still slower than the fastest driver. Actually saying that Parkinson is just a lap faster than most of the drivers out there on the wets. So maybe we are now at the cutoff point where the dries are quicker than the wets, with Parkinson doing that lap. And maybe some of these guys have realised, hey, we've got to start thinking about coming in for wet weather tyres. The other part of that, remember we said about fuel. We hadn't talked about fuel much yet. The fuel in these cars is restricted to 50% of a normal fuel tank, which means that you get around about 45 minutes of fuel in the car. 45 plus 45 doesn't equal 1 hour and 45 minutes. So these guys now will probably try and stretch it to that 45 odd minutes to go, and then pit for those dry tyres. So as much as the track is drying off and getting faster, I think the cutover for most of the drivers is going to be dictated by fuel as opposed to the tyre life.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, is you've got to sort of bide your time on these wets now to see how long you can push them. But obviously, yeah, there's that certain limit where you can get. But if you think about it, all these guys are on very different cycles. We've got some guys 22 laps old tyres, some guys with 20 lap old, some guys 24 laps. So they're a little bit all over the place, and that might come into play towards the end of the race when we're seeing who's got how much fuel you need to put in at that last stop. If we get a safety car, can you stop and have enough fuel to get to the end under that safety car? There's so many factors that come into play when you've got fuel strategy, tyre strategy, all in one. So it's a really good job by the organisers setting up the way that this event's running. A little bit tricky. And don't forget as well, I had a little outside tip there from Scott Rankin. The fuel burn is lower in the wet, of course, because you're not so much on the throttle. You're lifting and coasting and not braking as hard in the corners. So that's a really good point from Scotty. So thanks for that, mate. And yeah, it's just one of those things. It's a big strategy push to the end. Can you stay alive and can you get this strategy right?
You know, I mean, what we were 32, 33 laps in the wet. We're still looking at, as we hit pretty much halfway in this race, still looking at 38, 39 laps to go. So you've really got to push on at least 5-6 laps more to make it to that fuel window. The wet tyres are 100% slower than the dry tyre because the lap just gone, Faulkner was about 3 seconds off his fastest lap pace, so he's still not back to his maximum. He's not anywhere near back to his maximum pace on these wet tyres, but he's making them work. And also, interesting to note, he isn't trying to search for water either. He's just driving them as hard as he can.
Yeah, I could be wrong here, but I do remember seeing something about the tyre temperatures and the way the wets work in the first iteration of the wet tyres on iRacing, that driving through the puddles might not make really any difference, but they may have patched that since I read that. It was on the initial release, but yeah, if that's the case, I mean, I'd still be doing it just in case, because I'm not as informed as some people, but yeah, for now, I think, yeah, definitely you got to try and get that coolness back in the tyres, because they'll overheat in the dry. But yeah, he's just absolutely sending it at the moment, so throwing caution to the wind and just trying to lay down some good laps.
I think a couple of drivers now in the pits. We'll see what they do in regards to tyre choice. But yeah, I think the tyre choice is probably now wets to dries for everyone. And you just saw there too, Sam Chapman is now making moves on these dry tyres. Last lap by was the second fastest car on the track. No surprise who the fastest car was. Ben Faulkner out in front, but after him, Sam Chapman next. And then Parkinson straight behind him in regards to pace. So it is definitely a dry tyre track from here.
Big time. And it's just, yeah, that fuel saving and everything now to decide when you're going to come in. So but look how split up the field is in terms of time as we go on to the replay here.
Bernie is not going to want to race at Sandown ever again.
Ooh, whack. That's a big one. Yeah, I think you're right on that one. He's not having a good time, especially in, well, actually probably for the most part, most of the track not having any luck really today, which is unfortunate, but you know, you have your days. Sometimes you have good days and you have bad days. So meanwhile, we've got Dan Stevens still holding on to that 10th position in that fight with Stephen O'Brien in front. Aaron Obersteller behind him as well, so we've still got that sort of 9, 10, 11 battle, albeit they're a lap down off the leaders, but anything can really happen moving on with these tyre gambles and things like that. Safety cars could come into play, as we're seeing Tony Baker entering his pit box, probably coming off the wets onto the dries, getting a bit of fuel, and away he goes again.
Now, Leon Williams has also just come in as well. So we've got about half and half split now on tyres too, haven't we? We've got half the field on the wets, half the field have come in and taken the dries. Ben Faulkner at the front of the field, still going on these wet weather tyres somehow.
Yeah, he's doing a ripper job. Driven a very, very good race so far. We see the result to show it. He's still... he's probably a pit stop in front of Josh Houghton at the moment, and the rest of the guys behind, but he'll be saving some fuel, I think, as well at the moment to try and push this stint out as long as possible. Yeah, trying to, but still doing some ripper lap times on those wet tyres. Meanwhile, battle for 7th, Stephen O'Brien, Aaron Obersteller and Dan Stevens at the moment. A gaggle of 86s coming down into the final 2 corners of the circuit, and this is a sort of position that's been hotly contested. I think it'll sort of shift back to that P10, P11 sort of area once they make their sort of pit stops. But this sort of you know, rounding out the top 10, I think is the most hotly contested position on the track at the moment, and we love to see it. You know, we all want to see the battles at the front, but I think the best battles you see are normally in the middle of the pack.
Is a gaggle of 86s the right term? I would think a gazoo of 86s would be the right word.
I reckon you might be on the money there. I'm thinking gaggle is in geese,
Yeah.
and there's lots of G's happening. So
I will say there are a
gazoo.
lot of geese in this race driving, but there's probably a lot of geese out there enjoying the wet weather that we've had. But gazoo of 86s sounds pretty good. Wilco in the pits, and around about that 45-minute mark. So that'll be interesting to see if those guys can make it from this point, or how many laps they get. Is Stephen O'Brien's doing a great job of holding this spot. Obersteller and Stevens, they want through, but there's nowhere to go. They can't get past him.
No, and they're overlapping each other now. So Dan Stevens being passed here by Aaron Obersteller, and he's looking to get that move done on O'Brien as well. There's still overlap between the cars into the final corner, and he looks like he's got a little bit wide there on the exit, but he's got it done. I wonder if O'Brien's got a bit of a run here. He doesn't want to get in the toe for some reason, which is an interesting decision. Dan Stevens moving over into the toe now of Stephen O'Brien. Aaron Obersteller still out in front. Maybe looking to size him up here is O'Brien. No, he thinks better of it. He was way too far back, I think. But Aaron's done a really good job there to use that battle in front of him to his advantage. He got the overlap on Dan Stevens and forced him to the outside, and then managed to get inside Obersteller's rear quarter panel just to get enough overlap and edge him off to sort of get that final corner move done. So a bit of a chess move there, if you will, from Obersteller, using Dan Stevens a bit of a pawn and blocking him out to try and get through on O'Brien, and he's pulled it off.
Last lap times up on the totem. Sam Chapman, have a look at that last lap time. That's his fastest lap of the race as well. Just under 23, but the lap previous he did a 22.2 or a 22.7. By far the fastest car on track now is Sam Chapman. So the dry tyres 100% are faster than the wets. This group here, they're lapping in the 125, 126s, so they're losing a lot of ground to those other drivers that have already swapped over to the dry tyres. One of them being Tim Harris, who's just behind these guys. He's gained about 6 seconds in the last 2 laps.
Yeah, and not only that, they're losing the time from fighting each other as well. I'm thinking maybe Dan Stevens going around the outside of O'Brien there, and going quite wide on the exit of turn 1. But look, here comes Tim Harris, as you said. He's got the pace in that car. He's got the dry tyres. The windscreen wipers are still on, of course, for the spray that's coming up. But I wonder if you're maybe, Dan Stevens or Stephen O'Brien at the moment, you look at going for the undercut. Because if you go into the pits on the dries at the moment, I think 1 or 2 laps of a good pace, you're just going to jump out in front of these guys. So get your move done in the pits, maybe. Stop sort of squabbling over position on track and losing time. And here he comes, Tim Harris on the inside of Dan Stevens. Can he get it done into Dandenong Road on those slick tyres? The pace doesn't seem too crazy different. He didn't leave a lot of room off the outside there, but done pretty well there to get that move done. And he needed to do that quickly so that he could really make the most of that tyre difference and sort of get a wriggle on with his race. He's got Obersteller in front now as well, who's sort of pulled off that pack a little bit, but getting the move done was pretty well done there. But tyre difference didn't seem to be a huge factor as they were side by side through the corner, but on the run into it, made a huge difference under braking.
The difference in pace there on that previous lap. Lap 42 for Ben Faulkner and Sam Chapman.
Faulkner contending with a bit of lap traffic at the moment as well, so that might play into it a little bit, but yeah, definitely it's a dry tyre track, so I wonder if Faulkner's just sort of holding out, using the remainder of that fuel he's got left, and then coming in to make sure he's going to get to the end. He might be quite happy with the gap that he's got. at the moment, and the way the car's handling. So, if you're happy you're not going to pit, you don't have in the sim generally. I mean, you might if you have a mate that likes you enough, but you don't have anyone sort of spotting or engineering for you to help you make these decisions. You only really have the information that's in front of you, and of course you're trying to drive at the same time. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to know what's happening around you in terms of lap times and sort of performance of other cars on these different tyre compounds and when everyone else is pitting and whatnot. So that's another thing to take into account. Maybe he's not aware that the dry tyres are that much faster. And here we go. We've got a move getting done here. Tim Harris getting past Oberstella, but get a load of that pace difference. He caught up to him so quickly. And meanwhile, Dan Stevens has just hit the pit lane. So he's going to try for that undercut in front on Stephen O'Brien and try and get out and get that sorted. But look at, Tim Harris was, 3 seconds behind Oberstella last lap?
Yeah.
And just made that
lap and a half, basically.
Yeah, just made that time up really quickly. So he's come in from P2, so that'll drop him down the order a little bit. But of course, Ben Ford and Lewis Greathead still on those wet tyres as well. So meanwhile, Jacob O'Reilly's got Joseph Parkinson right under that Vermilion wing. I wonder if Joseph Parkinson's just sort of trying to get a better exit out of the final corner, give himself a run down the main straight. But there he goes, he's in the pit lane, as you said. They're all sort of blinking now, so I think we're probably safe on fuel for the most part, and now they're getting the fuel stop and the tyres done. So now it's a question of some of these guys that pitted a little bit earlier, are they going to make it on fuel? That's the next big question, Some of these guys have pitted, 9 laps ago to change to the dries. So we'll see what happens with that with the fuel, because that's 9 laps sort of equates to about 15 minutes, just under 15 minutes. If my maths is incorrect, it probably is. But
Chapman and Parkinson, we know that they're going to be short on fuel by about that same amount, aren't they? They're going to be 15 odd minutes short, 20 minutes short. So they're trying to put as much time in out on the track at the moment. But Ben Faulkner, he's in an incredible position right now. He's got a huge margin over everyone else in the field. Just made his pit stop, and he could probably come in and still make another pit stop and still come out with a lead. He's just in a great spot right now.
Yep, and he's put in that real hard work at the start of the race, those opening stints, to put himself in that position. 1 minute and 16 seconds in front of, sorry, that's just updated now, 31 seconds in front of Sam Chapman. So he was a minute and a half in front, lost about a minute in his box pitting. And so, 30 seconds now the gap to Sam Chapman. But, of course, Chapman's still got to make his next stop as well. So does Joseph Parkinson. So, like we said, those two started on the wet tyres and will be like a little bit off cycle as to what everyone else is doing. Here comes Aaron Oberstella in that Vermilion Motorsport entry, coming into his pit box. I believe he started a fair ways back, so he's got a really early pit box, which is how it works, I believe. In iRacing, you get your qualifying position will determine how early your pit box is. So if you're on pole, you got the last pit box all the way at the end of the pit lane.
That leaves 2 to pit from here. John Wade back in 17th, and also Stephen O'Brien, who said now they have to try and overcut Dan Stevens, who he was battling with before, as well as Aaron Oberstella. They were battling together. See where Oberstella comes out in relation to Dan Stevens, but that's a relatively long stop for Oberstella, who still stopped, still going.
Yeah,
I didn't think he was speeding at pit entry. He looked pretty smooth and in control, but there he goes. He's away now.
Yeah, still a long stop though. So I wonder what's going on there. If he had some repairs.
15 seconds longer than everyone else.
Yeah, and that's going to cost him too, because he was up around that sort of top 5 sort of competition area. But Dan Stevens P11.
There's Oberstella. So remember, Oberstella just passed Dan Stevens 2 laps before Stevens pitted.
That's right. So the gap there, we can't see it at the moment, but looking at it on track, they're a few corners apart because they're both a lap down, so we can't see the exact difference. 11 seconds. there's super producer Jay to the rescue.
It helps when you got the number written right in front of your face. I can't claim it as like maths or anything like that. I can literally see the numbers. So. Faulkner, this is his first flying lap now on the dry tyre since he's been back out there. And he's only 2.5 tenths off his fastest lap of the race. So if there's any doubt about the dry tyre being the choice tyre now, I think we've worked out the dries are the go.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I mean, look at the track at the moment. It's completely dry, aside from a couple of little puddles on the edges that haven't been moved from the cars. Of course, the evaporation doesn't happen that quickly, but looking at the live radar, the rain is certainly gone. Talked earlier, 4 seasons in a day. Track temp up to 45 again. So sun's out, guns out. The boys are cooking eggs on the pit lane at the moment, but yeah, 4 seasons in a day. I don't know why I keep going to say 6 seasons. I'm not sure what the go is there in my little brain, but 4 seasons in a day in Melbourne. We had summer, and then we had winter, and then now we've got summer again. So maybe we're going to get spring and autumn at some point. Some of the leaves will start falling on the track. I don't know.
Well, maybe this is spring now that the winter's gone and the spring's out there now, and we'll get summer by the end of the race again. This race is being held virtually in November. The Southern Hemisphere iRacing default date. Just seeing Peter Wilkinson, he's had an internet dropout, so unfortunate for Wilco.
It's a shame.
He was tracking along pretty well there too. He's mid-pack, he's scooting along nicely, he's still had his fast repair left. He'll be disappointed that he's had a dropout.
Yeah, I think maybe the people watching can make him feel better by donating to his cause. We've got in the link below as well, but yeah, that's a real disappointment for him. And he was doing a great race, but not only racing for fun, but yeah, trying to do his part for Beyond Blue, which again was really fantastic from him. So kudos to Wilco. But yeah, it's a real shame that his night has ended half an hour early.
Don't forget, in the YouTube chat, we have linked the donation link for the charity stream that Wilco is doing. Hopefully his stream hasn't ended. Or
He'll have to go do some. If he's not coming back into this race, he'll have to go do some officials or something and keep the stream going.
He has been doing a few officials.
Really well done.
Yeah, you see here, this is Tony Baker. He's about to be lapped by Ben Faulkner, who's now back to 25 seconds. So after the times that all settled back down, went to 23 seconds, now back to 25 as there it is up on the top of the screen. I was about to say a new fastest lap of the race. And that's probably a little bit too quick there for Faulkner, but he's made it through the corner A-okay. Tell you what, we have got a battle that's starting to unfold here. Remember, John Wade's just come in to get these new dry tyres, and he's got Michael Ladder just ahead of him. Ladder is holding on for this position, but I think he's going to have to give it up.
Yeah, he's coming through the pace difference there. John Wade on the inside coming into turn 1. He's got a pace difference coming down the straight. He's got about half his car passed already. Does John Wade. Very close there on the entry of the corner, but he's lined that up well so that he's got the inside for the next corner and gets that move and keeps the position. Did a little block pass there, not giving up the apex at turn 2, which is absolutely textbook. We love to see that. Like we said earlier, sometimes the best sort of battles for the minor positions, and that one was for P16. So really good job from the guys to, they're 3 laps down at the moment from the lead, but they're still having fun and still enjoying this event, trying to get the best finish possible. And saying that as well, we saw Bella Ainscough get into some strife earlier, and she's come back out as well. Same with a few of the other guys that sort of had some issues before. I think it was Nathan Birney, Ronald Allen as well. A lot of these guys have come back out onto the track. Ronald Allen 19 laps down, Birney 14 laps down. So it's good to see that they're keeping the race going. Obviously, I think some people get a little bit disheartened being down that far. I know I do, but it's good to see them still showing that sportsmanship to finish the race, which is really good.
And Bardish closing in on Tim Harris ahead. Yeah, the line previous lap by was around about 2 seconds. It's back down to 1 second now, so he's definitely closing that gap down and closing it quickly. And we'll see what the times are at the line. And Bardish has gone around about 1.5 seconds quicker on this lap, so he is flying right now. But he's on relatively worn tyres. They're about 14, 15 laps old. Tim Harris is pretty similar in regards to pace, but Harris is pushing the limits probably a bit too hard, you'd feel.
Yeah, I think he's got to be careful that he doesn't burn the tyres out too early. But just having a look on my overlay here, I've got Tim Harris on the 12th lap of his stint.
Yeah, 12 and 13 I
Burton
can see now.
13, yeah, so very similar on age of tyres. Next position behind them is Lewis Greyhead. He's about 7 seconds behind, but his tyres are 6 laps newer than Tim Harris. So keep an eye on that sort of later on. I've heard a call come into race control from Ben Faulkner. I'm not sure exactly what it was for, but see what might be something to do with some lap traffic maybe. Yeah, Ben Faulkner still showing his dominance, flexing his muscles out front. 27 seconds on Sam Chapman, which is no easy feat. Another thing, we got the replay here.
Found it.
Jay's found it. The super producer strikes again. Bouncing across the curves.
He gets walked here, so he goes to make the move here on. Actually, there's a little bit of contact there between the two.
Yep. We're just talking about being multiple laps down and still wanting to finish the race, which is fine, but you've really got to get out of the way there. I think, not too good communication there from the car in front, but it happens. You've got so many cars on the track. It's not a real racer habit to want to let someone through, even if you're multiple laps down. It's not something that's at front of mind all the time, but that could have been a lot worse than what it ended up being. So I think Faulkner might have lost a couple of seconds there on Chapman, who's, I wouldn't say hot on his tail, but he's definitely, the next car on track, obviously. And if we get anything happening with the safety car or any other issues for Faulkner up front, it could be well back on for the fight for P1. But another thing I was going to mention before was when you've got a race for an hour and 45 minutes as a solo driver, I think around this point is where the concentration becomes a thing. So that the track's dried up, you're back to your normal routine rhythm of the same braking markers and the same turning points and all that sort of jazz. It's now you've got to make sure you concentrate and don't move into a bit of a trance state where you're not really pushing or concentrating on your lap times and just sort of going through the motions. So you've got to be really careful of that in these longer races, I think. I, for one, suffer from the attention loss towards the end.
And right about this point as well.
Yeah, I reckon.
Right.
I reckon after about an hour and 20, I'm starting to crack jokes with the boys in Discord and talking to them, and they're telling me to shut up because they're trying to concentrate. But that's another key factor, and of course the 86, not the fastest car on iRacing by any stretch of the imagination. So these straights can be quite long. So you do obviously have some time to check certain things on lap times or look at your overlays and whatnot. But you just got to be a little bit careful to make sure you're keeping your focus for the rest of the race. But it's another thing I think that gets a little bit unnoticed on these longer ones.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very easy to get distracted in these races, isn't it? The smallest thing also can distract you when you're in these races too. You get, oh, look at that. Next time by, I'll look at that again and see if it's different, or something's distracted me off the corner of my eye, or oh, I've got an itch in my foot now, and then you can't stop thinking about it. So there's all real weird, strange distractions that come about in these sort of races that step into your brain about, as you said, an hour 20 into a stint or into a race. The last quarter of the race really starts to stretch out, and then you get into the last 10 minutes and your brain switches back on again. So it's a dangerous time for a lot of drivers this point until about 10 minutes to go.
Yep, and then you flick that switch when your spotter says, all right, 10 minutes left. You're like, oh, time to put the hammer down, and you're back into it. But yeah, meanwhile, I don't think that's affecting any of the guys at the front because they're remaining super consistent, just sort of making their way through the lap traffic. We're on board here with Stephen O'Brien out of P12. He's on the hunt to get that P11 off Aaron Oberstella just in front there. So see what he can make of this so far. But Stephen O'Brien, he's found his way up and down the pack a fair bit today and sort of keeps rounding himself out to that sort of 10th to 12th spot that we've seen Stevens and Oberstella fighting with him over. But at the moment, Dan Stevens taking that final spot in the top 10, and I think that was just in front of him as our P2 is Sam Chapman, so he's just been lapped, I think, recently. No, Joseph Parkinson, sorry, just lapped him. So I think most of the cars in from about, I think it was P8 onwards, are all a lap down now, so
yeah,
sheer dominance from the guys up front. I'm surprised we haven't seen a safety car yet, and getting really late in the race, it would be pretty disappointing, I think, for Ben Faulkner to put in all this work and lose that gap under a safety car. But yeah, I am really surprised that we haven't seen one yet.
Well, when you think about all of the incidents we've seen, every single incident's been a solo car incident. We haven't seen anyone really get turned by anyone. We've seen a couple of door-to-door hits and little incidental contacts where the track sort of blends and two cars are in the same spot. We haven't seen anyone punt anyone or anything like that, so race control haven't really had to do anything in that aspect, which is great to see. But yeah, if a safety car was to come out now, Ben Faulkner, he would be devastated. But it happens sometimes in endurance racing. You do all the hard work early on and it gets taken away by someone causing an incident that you don't have a say in. It happens all the time in the real world.
All the time. And it happens obviously quite regularly in the sim as well. We saw the other night in the Logitech G Pro Invitational, the safety car was called late and it was chaos towards the end, and that's the top, pretty much the creme de la creme of Australian sim sports sort of drivers. So it can really happen at sort of any level of competition. But hats off to the drivers. As you say, we haven't seen any dodgy maneuvers, any sort of real crazy incidents in terms of hitting each other. We've definitely seen contact with the fence, specifically down at Dandenong Road, as we've got nice little drone footage there. Pretty nice little shot as we're coming into turn 2.
Some big puddles
turn
out there
3,
too, isn't
turn
it?
4. Yes, where the cars aren't really driving, there's quite a fair bit of standing water still, and I'd imagine the grass would be very slippery off still. Meanwhile, Michael Ladder just picked up on my feed, has just had a bit of a spin, speaking of grass and incidents, so he kept it out of the fence, I think, maybe, or not, and he's diving into the pit lane. Got to be careful there not to get an unsafe pit entry. He was very close to the unbroken yellow line. He's picked up a meatball.
Yeah, so I reckon he has it inside of, who is that, 21? Is that John Wade? Oh, he smashed the ball hard.
Ouch.
That explains the mechanical black flag.
Yeah, I think so. I only caught him parked in the grass. I didn't quite see the front of his car, so he's used that fast repair. Oh, he hasn't quite yet, but I'd imagine he's probably going to use that fast repair if he hasn't already, and just get back going again. He definitely won't have to worry about fuel now. At least there's one positive. Oi! Huge jump there from Ben Faulkner, and we talked about earlier how he was flying across them curves, and now the concentration factor. He's just launched across that curb in a rallycross style, just bouncing over it. That was gnarly.
Pretty full on, wasn't it? Yeah, was bouncing it
All
over
wheels.
the curb. Ladder still hasn't come out of the pits yet either, by the way, so he's still got issues from that incident. Yeah, watch this.
He's
He's been
flying.
pushing hard for ages, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Look at that. So he went flying over the turn 1 exit curb as well, and then cutting across the turn 2 apex curb, just launched it, and then still over the turn 3 apex curb, just getting on 2 wheels. So he's still got that big gap to Sam Chapman, and this is why he's absolutely pushing it. He's trying to set, might be playing a little game with himself, trying to set fastest laps, doing better and better every time. But it's a risky game that when you're in the lead. You've got to be careful to not overdo it, because that could have easily come off unfavourable if you're in P1. And the fences are very close in that area of the track, so it's not like you're just going to slide off and into the grass and pick your car up and away you go, lose 10 seconds. That
The
could
most
be
street
areas of
circuit
fence.
part of this track, isn't it? That segment.
Yeah, 100%. The runoff is minimal, to say the least, and you know we've seen some guys get unstuck there already today, and we see it a lot in other events and real life as well. It's a pretty tricky part of the track. There he goes again over the curbs, whack, flying across as he's lapping. I'm not sure who that is. Tim Harris. So Tim Harris in P7, about to be lapped as well. So I wonder if how many cars Ben Faulkner can lap in this one as well. He's put together an absolute stellar drive, and the fact that he's just lapped 7th position is very impressive in my eyes.
100%. And he's not done either. Lewis Greathead's only 3 seconds up the road, so don't be surprised if he laps another in the next few minutes as well. So
we need over-unders of how many cars he's going to lap. Get on the sports bet live betting app, but yeah, look at him going across those curves, just incredible stuff. And you know, I've driven this track myself a fair few times in the sim, unfortunately not in real life yet, but getting across those curves, you can come really unstuck. So I think Ben's put in a lot of time into this setup, whether he's using the Hymo setup he's got tagged on the front of the car there, or if he's tweaked one of their setups or just built his own. But not only that, you've got to really put in the hours to prepare for a long event like this and be able to keep consistent pace and laying down these really fast laps. So he's really worked hard to put himself in this position, not only in the last hour and 20 minutes, but probably in the multiple hours leading up to the event as well.
Okay. 17 and 18 minutes to go in the race. I said before that Chapman and Parkinson probably won't make it home from their pit stops. When do they come in? They're going to have to come in at some point. You would think, my maths isn't the best. Neither's my English, judging by that way I was trying to speak. But I don't think they can make it. There we go. They're coming in now. Right on. I don't have to ask the question anymore. In they come.
I think they're going to come in this lap.
Well, Parkinson will get one extra lap, you would think, because he did pit later. So this will put Josh Horton up into 2nd position now. But the crazy thing is, he's nearly a minute behind.
Yeah, that is crazy. It'll be good to see where Chapman sort of comes out, because he's moving out of his box now. I can see on my feed. It was a very short stop, of course.
He's taken no tyres. He's just using the same ones and going again.
Yep, and I think that's exactly what Parkinson will do as well. It'd be pretty silly to take tyres, I think, at this point. You've only got 16 minutes left, but he's put himself in P4, and he's 6 seconds behind Joshua Houghton. So Houghton looks like he sort of might be trying to hold on to this one, but Chapman showing that he's got some pace, of course, to put himself in that position to start with, and we'll see how long Parkinson's pit stop will be. It'll probably be maybe a second shorter, but we'll see how that goes. And meanwhile, just waiting for Joseph Parkinson. I wonder if he's saved any fuel, might get another lap or two out of it. But see if he probably going to come in this lap, I reckon, as we were saying before. I guess we're about to find out. Here he goes. He's staying out, so he saved
on the
a bit of fuel. Yeah, he saved a bit of fuel. I wonder how much fuel he saves.
Well, he ran 1 lap longer in the first stint, so I guess if you run the same thinking, he's going to run an extra lap this time. So he'll end up 2 laps ahead. Parkinson will come in and probably rejoin around about where Ben Faulkner is. These guys are a couple of the front cars that are a lap down, Parker and O'Reilly, but Jake O'Reilly, he has been flying at the moment the last few laps.
Yeah, and here he goes looking to size up Tony Baker in front. And we did see Tony starting a fair ways up the field. I think he started in 3rd, so slipped down, but here he goes. Caught me looking away. Jacob O'Reilly getting past Tony Baker on that final corner, so he sized him up pretty well there to get that move stick. But Tony Baker, if I know him pretty well, watching him and stewarding him in the past, he's not going to give up very easily. He's going to want that position back. He's slipped down the order from where he started, so he's probably a little bit disappointed with how that's rolled for him. Might have struggled a little bit under the wet conditions, but he's staying right on the back at the moment of Jacob O'Reilly. Tony Baker doing a really good job of not letting O'Reilly just drive away with that position straight away. He'll have the toe here coming up the back straight, so we'll see what happens there.
Parkinson stayed out another lap too.
Yeah, that's a mega save on fuel for him. So he's doing a fantastic job there. I mean, I don't think he's going to have enough fuel to get to the end, but every little bit helps if it's not going to affect your pace. But Tony Baker waiting for the next sort of opportunity, maybe to try and get on the back of Jacob O'Reilly. But yeah, as I said before, Tony Baker probably a little bit disappointed so far with how his race has panned out after such a great qualifying. Whereas Jacob O'Reilly is the opposite. He's up 11 spots. If my memory strikes me correctly, I don't think he set a lap in qualifying.
Yeah, correct.
Yep. So he's the opposite. He's gone the old Mac from the back, and he's up 11 spots. Speaking of people who can't speak properly, 11 spots. So doing a really good job to sort of salvage what he can. And Tony Baker slowly drifting off the back of him at the moment.
Just can't quite match him at the moment, and Tim Harris is now going to start to feel a bit of pressure as well from Jake O'Reilly. Into the pits finally comes Joseph Parkinson, so he's net gained 3 laps on Sam Chapman in fuel, 1 in the wet conditions at the start and 2 since they've come out on the dry tyre. In saying that, he didn't have quite as good a pace in the dry at the start when it was still a intermediate track, so maybe he saved a little bit more fuel at that point as well. He's been joined in the booth by Peter Wilkinson. Wilco, we were talking about your stream that's been going on. Unfortunately, you had a power cut, which dropped you from the session, but still out there trying to raise some cash for Beyond Blue.
Yeah, that's it, mate. I was just feeling like I was getting in that rhythm too, and what you guys were talking about while I was watching it, about that this is that part where you really need to not, get in your own head and that kind of stuff and just focus on doing your laps. And I was in that groove, and there we go. Power goes out, no more stream. But yeah, we're raising money at the moment for Beyond Blue, and they've got a cool campaign going on, which is Beyond the Screen. And it's raising awareness for mental health, especially in Aussie gamers, which I think most of us would claim it to being some kind of a gamer in our lives, and how we get on the screen, we do our thing, and we have our good time, and then what happens when we're not on the screen, and how to mentally look after ourselves, because I know I've had my fair share of problems as soon as I step away from the screen. And yeah, we're raising money for that, so it's a pretty good cause, I thought. So I'd jump on it.
I don't know if we could call ourselves gamers, though, because aren't gamers usually half decent?
No, mate, you can be whatever type of gamer you want. These days you can have a little mobile phone and crush some candy and still be a gamer, but
hey,
it's all about that.
It's going to be Olympic sport now too, so...
That is, don't worry. Look, we're taking over the world. No, but it's one of those things. Mate of mine, Jack Hutto, he used to podcast with him. He was the one who brought it to my attention. he's going to try and ride 200 Ks on a bike to raise money for this thing. But I'm trying to help in my little way. We're obviously Locked On Lads. If you've followed any of our content, been pretty big on mental health for a while, and it just fit. We just got off the box rally I think we've raised almost over 15 grand now on our 2 box rally campaigns, 15 grand, and didn't want to jump into anything too soon, and this jumped out at me, and away we went. This is the first of many things we're going to be doing this month, so it ends on the 31st of August, so it should be fun.
If you do want to donate and you're not sure how to do it, jump on to Locked On Lads on Facebook, or if you are watching us live on YouTube, the link to donate is pinned in the live chat. Talk about your race though, Wilco. Up until that point, you were just cruising along. You weren't setting the world on fire, but you were just in your own little world, picking laps off and gaining spots.
Yeah, look, we'd worked hard on nothing pretty much. We jumped in last minute. I did a couple of laps yesterday and felt pretty confident in the car, and then we got in our own heads. We talk about the mental stuff again, and the whole rain being 15, 20 minutes into the thing, the original idea was just go out on wets and just see it out, but then we talked ourselves into there wasn't going to be much rain, and the dries stayed on, and I obviously pushed a little bit further. I think I got up to 6 before I spun. I'm sure you caught many of my spins on
not as
stream.
Many as Vernie's, don't worry. Vernie's way worse than you.
I did. Poor guy too. He was having a bit of fun out there too, and he never gets the right end of the stick. But he's good to have him and Sheepy in the team and having a chat with him again. But yeah, just too many mistakes early on, and then I'd trying to get that 2-stop confirmed. So I was trying to burn as much fuel as I could with the dry tyres on, and just probably pushed 1 or 2 laps too many. But in hindsight, we were in a pretty good spot. We'd fueled to the end. We probably had about 2 litres left, me and Leon. So we were pretty confident with the car we had left. But at that stage, you're 3 laps down on the leader, and it pretty much spread apart like it is now. Where you've got 6 cars on the lead lap, and then only next 5 are only 1 lap down. So it ended up being Ira's decision not to make a safety car. It's good because last time the safety car screwed us, but you're definitely racing about 4 different. There's 4 different races out there, like a multi-class. You're racing with your 4 or 5 people that around your level, and then you've got the 5 or 6 up front, and 5 or 6 in the next pack, and that's where it's at. So it was good. I felt pretty good. Like the best I felt was the car was when the power went out. So I'm sure it's in the wall somewhere now. I'll dig it out later and see how she went.
Battle going on right here at the moment. Joseph Parkinson just ahead of Dan Bardish and Lewis Greathead. They're battling over 4th, 5th and 6th. Also in amongst that as well was the lap down car of someone. I can't quite work out who it is. Is it Bella Ainscough?
Yeah,
Bella Ainscough,
yeah, Bella. She unfortunately had they got called in for a technical. The car was too damaged from Ira, not a meatball. I assume she probably had them. They had a meatball.
Yeah.
But Ira actually called it over the comms, which is a call I haven't heard in iRacing before from a league runner. So you always get something new in this league.
A bit spicy, I suppose, that way. But I think maybe it was a courtesy thing, because I think if you don't serve within 3 laps, you get black flag. So it might have been a case of that, maybe just being
and Bella's
Ira being a good bloke.
Bella's relatively new to iRacing as well, so maybe a courtesy thing as much as anything else, as you said.
A story behind the scenes is Bernie actually had a meatball at the very same time, and he decided to push on because it wasn't hurting his time. So I think he was 2 laps in. I said, you push the 3 and then come in and do it. So I'm like, hold on, 71. I'm trying to work out, is that you, Bernie? Because it was exact same situation. He was running, but he was actually trying to push some more fuel out of the car before he got a new one.
Yeah, and that tripped us up a bit, I think, on the broadcast as well. We weren't sure if he'd already served it and got another one or not.
Oh, he got two within 2 laps, unfortunately. It was a very unlucky period. He got. I haven't seen what happened, but there was a car hit him in the rear end and ended up in the wall. So it was in that skatey period of the race where anything was happening.
Yeah, where the wet tyres weren't up to temperature and were still behaving like dry tyres, and dry tyres were no good for anything. We're going to see a couple of pit stops right here too in this group. Dan Bartish just about to finish his 30th lap in this stint. Can't be much more fuel left in the car at that point. How many laps are we looking at? We'll go 32 maybe?
Yeah, it was around about 32, so it's 1.2 a lap. So maths in the back of my head, yeah, it's about the 36 to 40 mark from memory. So they can't have too much left, but that's all the stuff I should have done more prep on. But yeah, it's one of those things. You're sitting there. We spent probably an hour of the race doing maths in the back of our heads and not concentrating on driving. But it's been a pretty clean race considering. I heard you guys talking about it before, but shout out to the driving standards of the guys in here. 24 cars on track through wet weather and not many major issues. I got penalised for one thing, but that's about the only penalty I think we heard.
And for the most part, it's been everything that's happened's been solo car as well. There hasn't really been too much go on in regards to car contact. There's been a little bit of contact, but nothing like what we've seen in other races in other series, which is really good. John Wade is in the pits at the moment. He's got a mechanical black flag for some reason. Not 100% sure
that
as to what that was.
Ladders in the wall again behind too, I believe. I think that'll be his second one, but just after the back straight there. But yeah, Wade was one of the ones I was battling with, which was yeah. So I would have definitely got that car. That's one I would beat. But anyway, we saw one peel off into the pits there. So yeah, so it's starting to happen. It's interesting. The rain worked pretty well considering the position of it, because you really had to stay out there on the wets if you wanted to get enough fuel in the car to get to the end. So that was the only upside of it. As we see, the local one car hit the wall pretty hard.
Unfortunate there for John. Good news is he's back out on track.
Yeah, we've seen that more on the other side of that corner, coming into the approach at Dandenong today so far. But yeah, I think just getting a little bit wide there and skating across the curbs can really easily unbalance the cars. Here we go, Ben Faulkner getting another car lapping. So I wonder what the total count is now. I think that's up to P5. He's lapped up to.
4 cars left on the lead lap now.
What a stellar job from him to get that many cars lapped. But meanwhile, yeah, we saw that battle going on with Greathead, Riley, and Bertash, and yeah, Bertash happened to come in and take that splash right after he was overtaken by both those drivers. So bit of a mix up there, and currently with Tim Harris, who's doing a pretty good job here, P7. But yeah, as you say, I think he might not make it to the end on fuel, depending on how good he is at saving. I wonder if Dan will give him a little push from behind there or not, but maybe not, probably not.
The issue he's got is that Ben Faulkner's pace probably means there's still 3 laps to go. So if Ben was a little bit slower, he might be okay and be able to stretch out the fuel, but I think he's going to be a lap short or 2 laps short because Ben Faulkner's pace is so good.
Yeah, that always comes into play with the time lapse. With Ben's absolutely dominating, 53 seconds now in front of P2. So, and of course, no surprise, he got the fastest lap. We did see earlier Joseph Parkinson and Sam Chapman in the mix for that fight for the lead and the podium. But yeah, the fuel numbers just didn't add up, and Josh Houghton's just taken the benefit there and resumed his race back in P2. If he can get to the end on fuel, he'll be laughing because he's up 19 positions as well, and so is Sam Chapman. So a couple of big efforts from both of those.
Yeah, you got to remember, most of these Vermilion drivers, especially Faulkner, started at the rear of the grid. They did not take quali laps, so a few got caught up going through the field, but otherwise they've done a stellar job just doing that as well. Parkinson was one of those ones who started on wets as well, and in hindsight, it probably stuffed around with the fuel numbers a little bit, but great job getting back to 4th, and I think it was a good call there. But yeah, it's Ben's definitely got wings on his car. He's hit every curb, and all 4 off on most corners there when there's a curve. Every time I tried to hit a curve, I almost spun it around. So it's got some talent, the young boy.
He's definitely got the car set up very, very well to use the curves, hasn't he? He's able
Yeah.
to use them, but maintain control. Every single time he hits a curve, it looks like the car's about to unload and shoot off into the wall, but he's just got such good car control over the curbs, and somehow he makes the car perform, even though it's going through the air. Like, through there, look, the front wheels are off the ground, but he's still getting it to pull up and turn and exactly as he wants. So, the car is set up very, very nicely.
Yeah, these things are notorious for having 2 wheels on the ground. If they're on the 2 on the side, it'll kick really hard because you've obviously got traction there, and it's all about having the accelerator in the right spot when you do land. But I'll let you guys take on this white flag and call it home. I think we're almost there.
Yeah, almost there, Wilco. And once again, thanks for doing the charity stream. It's fantastic work from you. Don't forget to have a look at donating and the pinned comment on the stream. But yeah, meanwhile, Barney's waved that white flag, and Ben Faulkner probably just needs to cruise at home. I wonder if we're going to see another push lap from him as he's flying across those curbs again. He's said, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm just going to drive the wheels off it like I have been all race. Just flying over those curbs, as we were saying. But all the risk going out the window, and that's Joseph Parkinson in front. Can he get that fourth position lapped as well? Joseph Parkinson was in the mix early on to take a podium spot, but ultimately fell short with the fuel strategy, and that is the number 6 of
Ladder again.
Yeah, Ladder having more issues, and that is a very broken car. So that's another good way to finish your race. Not really, but here he goes. Ben Faulkner, another lap car down. What a fantastic drive from him. Coming around the final corner now. Little fight going on behind as well. Little tripping over each other, but well done, Ben Faulkner. Congratulations on an outstanding drive to take that win by an absolute country mile.
And that was for position, those banging of doors behind. Parkinson did the right thing to let the leader through and not have to do the extra lap. I don't think he realised how close Lewis Greathead was, and potentially was going to make contact. So picks up the position there. Does Parkinson by only 0.07 of a second. Ben Faulkner celebrating though, and Vermillion will pick up P1, P2, P3 with only 3 drivers on the lead lap, being Faulkner, Houghton and Sam Chapman. They're 3 podium place cars, the only drivers on the lead lap. Great drive.
Fantastic, and obviously the team was working really hard, like we said about the setups, the way that they were practicing, probably helping each other out. So really well done from the boys at Vermillion, as we're seeing the car control on full display again, getting sideways, getting rowdy, flashing the lights as you do when you take that win. So yeah, absolutely stellar drive from the boys in the Vermillion cars. Probably get a chance to have a chat to Ben Faulkner before we wrap up tonight, so that'll be good to get into the mind of our race winner. That's a pretty second-hand looking 86 crossing the line there. I think that's our mate
Bernie's broken car.
Yeah, apologies. We talked about him so much, his name fell out of my brain somehow. But here we go, the results for the Tin Top Cup here at Sandown. As we said many times, Ben Faulkner, absolute dominant performance in that Vermillion Motorsport car, taking out the victory 55 seconds in front of his teammate Josh. Also Vermillion in that 1-2-3. Sam Chapman rounding out the podium. Joseph Parkinson, we saw him start on the wets, was a big gutsy move and seemed to work quite well for him. So it's only finishing a lap down, but most of the flips are lap downs, so that's not really relevant. But P4 for him. Lewis Greathead, P5, Jake O'Reilly, P6, more Vermillions in the top 10. Tim Harris in that pulse tuning Echuca Toyota, taking out P7. Dan Burdish, unfortunately, I'll take a little bit of fuel at the end there, dropping a few more spots down at P8. Tony Baker down at P9, and Aaron Oversteller to round out our top 10.
The rest of the field, Dan Stevens, 1 lap down as well, and then 2 laps down for Stephen O'Brien, 3 laps down for Warren Henry, Jordan Dakin, and then 4 laps down for Leon Williams. Sam Katakuzanos and John Wade 5 laps down, and then the did not finishes in the end. Go to Justin Potter, who was the driver that we saw come in and pits right at the end. Bala Ainscough did finish the race, but 10 laps down. Michael Ladder did also finish the race 10 laps down. Nathan Verdi 15 laps down. Wilco, you officially finished 30 laps down, so you did half the race. That's not the worst way to finish in the end. Ronald Allen, John Snell, and that was it that finished. Ira Felberg was in race control. Douglas Gowans unfortunately couldn't take the race start. We'll quickly have a chat to our race winner though, Ben Faulkner. Dean, you're with him.
Ben, what a race, mate. Well done. Absolutely dominant performance. Talk us through some of the key moments from that race for you.
Thanks, boys. Yeah, it was a great race. We were sort of just working out what the fuel strat would be, because we saw there was going to be like probably a 2-stop, especially with the rain. I was going to try and stay out on dries the whole time, but towards the end it got a bit wet, so I decided to pit for wets and fill the tank up, and then run it out as long as I could on the tank, and then pitted back for dryers and went to the end, because it was, I think I had exactly enough fuel to get to the end when I pitted, so it's pretty lucky.
Perfect. I wouldn't call it luck. I think it's all good planning, mates. And speaking of planning, 1, 2, 3 for Villian Motorsport. How did the sort of preparation look for the team in the lead up to this event?
Well, I mean, I myself had, and a few of the boys, Lewis, had a Logi Invitational on Friday, so we were mainly prepping for that. And then we got a notification on our calendar that we had it, the race today, so did some laps yesterday, some laps today, and got into it, and had some fun.
Nothing like a last-minute preparation, mate. It goes to show. I guess you didn't really need all that much practice, but really fantastic result. And off the back of that, is there anyone you wanted to sort of thank before we let you go?
I'd like to thank all the boys at Million Motorsports, Hymo Setups, Burb Designs, Supernova Motorsports, my dad, he's watching, Million X Coaching, professional coaching at full price. A shout out to Jacob O'Reilly, who'll be my co-partner in Logi Invitational on Friday.
Fantastic stuff,
and thanks to you boys too.
Oh, of course, thank you. Awesome drive from Ben Faulkner to sort of wrap that event up. He was absolutely dominant the whole time. Looks like we've got our boy in the chat as well, his teammate Josh. Is it Hofston or Hofton, or I think I was saying your name wrong the whole time, but talk us through that race there, Josh.
It's Horton, just let me get that one out of the way. Yeah,
sorry, mate.
It's a bit hard to name. That was a great race. It was a bit longer than I usually do, but going through the race, just making sure that we were hitting our fuel targets and making sure that when we got to the changeover for tyre that we were where we needed to be.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, mate. And we're talking about the prep that sort of went into this race, which it didn't sound like a lot. So what was the sort of strategy for you with the weather sort of coming in the early stages of this race?
Well, there's obviously a crossover point between the wets and the dry, so you're sort of waiting for the time to come out of the lap before you get on, like switch onto the wets. Sam took the hard route and tried to go through on the wets just straight away off the grid. The rain took a little bit too long to get there, so the majority of us, I think he was one of 2 or 3 people that actually stayed out on the wets. The dries look like the way to go, and you're just waiting for the time to sort of dwindle down.
Yeah, of course. That definitely worked out for Sam. And before we let you go, mate, was there anyone else that you wanted to thank for your performance today?
Yeah, absolutely. I have Vermilion Motorsports, Race Lab Overlays, Burb Designs, Supernova Motorsports, Moser Racing, Hymo Setups, and Vermilion X Coaching.
Fantastic stuff, mate. Great finish from you. P2 to round out the day. We'll get your mate as well in here, Sam Chapman, for a quick chat. I'm sure he's got some similar props to say about the rest of the team. in there as well. Sam, another great race from you, mate. Finishing out P3. Fantastic stuff. You started on the wets, which surprised us, and I was a little bit skeptical at the start, but you proved me wrong. Talk me through a bit of that.
Yeah, no, against all professional advice within the team, I decided to give it a crack on the wets. It was a pretty tough first stint. It was, with a lack of straight line speed, but it just takes so long to change tyres that I figured it might be worthwhile. So, yeah, they burnt out a bit towards the end of that refueling window, but was pretty lucky in that it dried out sort of right at the crossover point to where, I could fuel to. It was probably a bit early to go on dries, but, I was empty, so it was lucky enough that worked out in the end.
And, well, that's a bit of luck always helps, I think. But, I think the braveness to start on the wets definitely supersedes the luck. But how about the fuel sort of? You're obviously off strategy to what everyone else was doing with the fuel. So did you have to save any fuel towards the end, or were you pretty safe?
Nah, I didn't. Because I refueled about 20 minutes from the end or 30 minutes from the end, I fueled up. I didn't save fuel at all. So I ran the tank completely dry in that first stint, that sort of first 45, 50 minutes, because, I wanted to change tyres at a full fuel stop, and then just had to do a bit of a splash and dash towards the end. So didn't end up having to do any fuel saving, which is good.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. And just before we let you go, enjoy the rest of your night. Is there anyone else you wanted to thank for your performance this evening?
Well, all the VM boys, we had a great time there today, and I'm sure they've gone through all the sponsors already, but as well, Race Lab Overlays, Burb Designs, Supernova Motorsports, Moser Racing, Hymo Setups, and Vermilion X Coaching.
Fantastic stuff, mate. Great finish for you. Well done. Congratulations on your P3. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks. All right, next round. Aussie Tin Top Enduro Cup is December in the GR86 Phillip Island. Another fantastic Aussie circuit. Another hour and 45-minute race for that one. So be sure to keep your eye on the date for that. Looking forward to hopefully maybe getting the opportunity to call that one again, because tonight was a lot of fun, Joe.
It went so quick too, didn't it? It didn't really feel like an overly long race, and all of a sudden we're getting a white flag thrown. So really, really good. And Phillip Island in these cars is going to be a load of fun, especially if we've got a similar weather situation where it there's a little bit of a sprinkle with a few minutes gone and then the track drying out. Phillip Island in the dry is a bit of a troublesome track, so add a bit of water. Going to be all sorts of action, so bring it on. Look out for December. Be either the first or second weekend of December.
Yes, the final date is TBA at the moment, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. But for now, we say goodbye. Thanks for joining us on SimSpeed TV. My name's Dean Hunt. Joining us for a little bit was Peter Wilkinson. Make sure you check out the Beyond Blue donation link in the comments. And Jay Kennedy, super producer and on the call as well. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.